The sky had never looked like this before. Even the oldest villagers who had lived through wars, famines, and storms could not remember a night painted with such colors. Purple lightning crackled silently across clouds of silver and black, and the moon hung low, swollen like a great pale eye, watching the world below. Ethan stood at the edge of the cliff, his boots sinking into the damp earth. He had come here to think, to escape the ever-turning gears of the city and the weight of expectations pressing upon him. Yet tonight, something far stranger than the usual troubles of humans had arrived. A ripple moved across the air, soft at first, like the trembling of a spider's web. Then it grew stronger, warping the stars themselves. Ethan squinted. In the center of that impossible light, a figure began to descend. She was taller than any human woman, her movements fluid, almost unreal. Her robes shimmered with colors he could not name, reflecting the lightning in ways that seemed alive. And her eyes, oh, her eyes, glowed with the deep blue of distant galaxies, pulling him closer even as he took a step back. When she touched the ground, the air around her hummed with energy. Birds fell silent and the trees seemed to bow toward her. Ethan's heart hammered. He had studied myths and legends, but none of them spoke of a moment like this. She spoke then, her voice deep, soft, and echoing as if many voices sang in harmony. "What must I do to marry you, human?" she asked, her gaze fixed upon him. The words struck him like thunder. Marriage, to her, to this being who was clearly not of this world. His mind raced. Was she a conqueror, a goddess, or something far stranger? He opened his mouth and nothing came. He swallowed, trying to force his voice, but only silence answered. The queen tilted her head, studying him as if reading the thoughts hiding behind his eyes. "You do not know what to say?" she observed, and a small, almost imperceptible smile curved her lips. It was not cruel, but it was dangerous. She had the patience of centuries, and he felt the weight of that knowledge pressing down on him. I, Ethan began, but no words formed. He had no answer. "Then I will wait," she said. The vibration of her voice was like soft thunder. "But understand, I will not wait forever." A few distant villagers had crept out of their homes, peering through the darkness, unsure whether to flee or worship. Even the moon seemed to pause, casting a pale light that made the queen's form almost ethereal. Ethan finally found his voice, quiet and shaky. Who are you?" "I come because the threads of fate have led me here, to you." Zalaria stepped closer, and the earth seemed to respond to her movement. Her robes shifted like liquid light. "Because, human, you are strong in ways even you do not yet understand, because your heart carries the courage to face what others cannot, and because fate has deemed you necessary." He had fought bandits, he had studied old ruins, he had faced storms at sea, but this was unlike anything he had known. "Yes," she said, her voice softening yet still resonating with power. "Necessary for me and for your world." Wanted to believe in her words. He had spent so long protecting his people, striving to keep order in chaos. And now here stood a being who could perhaps protect them all, but at what cost? "You speak as if you will help us," Ethan said finally, his voice steadier now. "But why marriage, why me?" "Because there is a curse upon me," she admitted. "A bond that can only be broken by a human who is willing to face the truth of what I am and what I desire. Only then can I live fully. Only then can your world be safe from the darkness that hunts it. None that demanded a human's heart in return. And if I refuse?" he asked, though he knew he could not refuse. He already felt bound to her, caught in a web of fate he did not yet understand. "Then it will come anyway," Zalaria said. "The darkness, and perhaps even I will be lost. But I hoped you would choose differently." Lightning split the sky, illuminating the jagged cliffs around them. In that flash he saw her fully, a crown of light hovering above her head, robes flowing like liquid starlight, eyes glowing like twin moons. She was terrifying, beautiful, impossible, and utterly real. "You feel it, don't you?" Zalaria asked, her voice softer now, almost a whisper that seemed to echo in his mind. Ethan's throat tightened. Yes, he felt it, the pull of something greater than himself, the weight of destiny, the spark of something new and frightening. He nodded slowly, unable to speak. "Good," she said. Her smile was small but genuine. "Then we will see if the heart of a human can endure what the stars demand." Zalaria's hand hovered near his, though she did not touch him. The energy between them was tangible, a pulse that made his vision blur. "Come," she said finally. "There is much to show you, much you must understand if you are to survive, if we are to survive." He felt awe and a strange, stirring hope. Above them, the sky continued its unnatural dance of colors and lightning, as if the world itself acknowledged the arrival of this alien queen and the beginning of a story that would bind two worlds together. "Wait," he said suddenly. I don't know if I can. Because you must. The world around them seemed to bend under her presence. The air hummed, and shadows danced unnaturally, moving as though alive. The farther they went, the more Ethan felt that he had stepped into a story older than humanity itself, a story that stretched across stars, time, and worlds. "Where are we going?" Ethan finally asked, his voice trembling slightly. "To the ruins of your ancestors' castle," Zalaria replied, her voice calm, yet carrying a weight that made him shiver. "It is a place where the boundaries between worlds are thin. It is safe there for now." And yet, as he looked at Zalaria, he could not help but feel that she carried a sorrow deeper than the night itself, and a loneliness that reached beyond the stars. The forest began to thin, and the jagged silhouette of the old castle appeared. Its towers were broken, walls crumbled, and yet there was a certain majesty in its decay. It had once been a place of human kings, a symbol of strength, now a shadow of the past. Zalaria stepped onto the courtyard, and the stones beneath her feet glowed faintly, as if recognizing her presence. "This place holds memories," she said softly. "Memories of humans who believed in something greater, memories of courage. It is fitting that we begin here." Memories of courage, of human kings. He wondered if his own small courage could measure against what she demanded, and yet looking at her he felt that courage might be the only way to survive this encounter. Zalaria turned to him, her eyes glowing in the twilight. "Ethan, you must understand. I am not merely a visitor from another world. I am cursed. My people destroyed my home, my power was bound, and I am incomplete. Only a human heart of true strength can help me reclaim what was lost. Only together can we survive what comes, and only together can I be free. I will try." It was not a gaze of judgment nor of command, but of expectation. He wanted to look away, to flee, to hide from the enormity of it all, but he could not. He felt bound to her as though invisible threads connected their hearts, pulling him forward. "Very well," he said finally, his voice firmer. "I will do it, but I do not know what comes next." "Then we begin with understanding. Come." "Because this place holds the past and the future in its stones," Zalaria said. "It is a place where truth cannot hide, where courage is revealed, and where the bond between us may begin to form." Ethan could almost hear whispers, echoes of long-dead kings and warriors murmuring their secrets, their regrets. The air smelled of dust, earth, and something faintly metallic, like magic waiting to awaken. Zalaria extended her hand, palm open, and a faint light floated above it, swirling like liquid stars. "Place your hand here," she instructed. "Feel it. This is the beginning of the pact. The bond is forming, not yet complete but strong enough to begin." The pulse continued, faint but insistent, as if urging him forward. And for the first time he began to understand that this bond was more than words. It was energy, connection, destiny. Zalaria took a step closer, her eyes never leaving his. "I do not demand your love yet, only your willingness to face what comes with me. The darkness is real, Ethan, and it will not wait." Darkness, she had mentioned it before, and now it felt imminent, almost tangible in the air around them. He had fought bandits, storms, and beasts, but none of them compared to the sense of looming danger that clung to her words. "Then we face it," he said finally, voice steadying. "Together. But be warned, courage alone will not suffice. The path ahead is filled with choices that will test both of us." Ethan listened, absorbing every word, feeling both terrified and strangely comforted. The stories she told were filled with loss and power, beauty and pain. And in them, Ethan began to see not a terrifying alien queen, but a being who had suffered, loved, and hoped, much like himself. As dawn approached, the first light of the new day crept through broken windows, casting gold upon the ruined stones. Ethan looked at Zalaria and realized something profound. He did not fully understand what lay ahead, but he no longer feared stepping forward. Somehow, the thought of facing the unknown with her beside him made the world feel less vast, less unmanageable. Zalaria turned to him, her eyes soft but firm. "The pact is not yet complete," she said. "But the choice has been made. You have agreed to stand with me, and now the world will notice." "The darkness comes," Zalaria said, her voice calm but urgent, "and we must be ready." "Then we face it," he said again, more firmly this time. "Together." The sky outside darkened once more, and beyond the castle walls, strange lights danced on the horizon, as if the universe itself was watching the beginning of their journey. The alien queen had arrived. The bond had begun, and the darkness, whatever it was already moving toward them. Ethan took a deep breath, gripping his cloak. Whatever came next, he knew he could not turn back. And Zalaria, the queen of stars and shadows, smiled faintly, sensing that the human beside her had the courage to walk with her into the unknown. The ruins of the castle faded behind them as Ethan and Zalaria stepped into the forest that stretched like a living shadow. Light twisted strangely between the trees, forming shapes that almost resembled figures moving alongside them. Ethan's heart pounded, not just from fear, but from the feeling that the world itself was alive, watching their every step. Zalaria walked with a grace that seemed impossible for any human. Her robes shimmered faintly with a light that never left her, casting long reflections on the moss-covered ground. Ethan tried to keep pace, but even as his legs moved, he felt as though gravity itself was different around her, pulling him forward and upward toward something unseen. The artifact, Zalaria said without looking at him, is not merely a tool. It is a test. It will show the truth of your heart, Ethan, and it will show mine. What kind of test? Strange fog slithered along the ground, curling around their boots like ghostly fingers. Ethan shivered. Do you feel it too? He asked, glancing at Zalaria. Always, she said softly, her eyes scanning the mist. It is the path, not safe, not kind, but necessary. Ethan could feel the shadows pressing against him, whispering in voices that were not human. Each whisper carried doubt, fear, even accusation. You are weak. You cannot protect her. You are nothing. Ethan stumbled back, heart hammering. Zalaria, what is this? But it will test what you hold inside. Do not let it sway you. As he reached the center, the darkness swirled and formed a figure, a shadow of himself taller, with eyes like deep voids. Ethan froze. What are you? He whispered. I am your fear, the shadow said in his own voice, twisted and cold. The truth you hide even from yourself. I am not afraid of you, he said, though his voice shook. The shadow laughed, echoing like wind through a canyon. You always will be, you cannot face me. Face it, and you will be stronger than before. Slowly, the shadow dissolved, the darkness retreating like fog under the morning sun. Ethan collapsed to his knees, breathless, and Zalaria helped him rise. Well done, she said. You have passed the first trial, but there will be more. Each trial will be harder for both of us. And yet, even as he caught his breath, he noticed something new, an unfamiliar feeling tugging at his chest. Something that made his heart beat faster when he looked at Zalaria. Something like longing. The journey continued, the forest shifting around them. Trees bent unnaturally, branches stretching like arms, leaves whispering secrets in a language Ethan could not understand. And always the fog lingered, curling around them, never fully leaving. They came to a river that sparkled with a strange, otherworldly light. Its surface reflected not the trees, but visions of distant stars, swirling galaxies and worlds beyond comprehension. Ethan stepped closer, peering into the water. What is this? It shows what is and what could be. You may see yourself, your fears, or even your desires. But beware, the river can deceive as easily as it reveals. Do not let it take hold, Zalaria said, her voice soft but commanding. Remember who you are, remember why you came. They continued, the path narrowing into a canyon of jagged black stone. The air vibrated with a low hum, and Ethan could feel power thrumming through the walls. He had the sense that the artifact they sought was close, but so too was danger. Why does it feel alive? He asked, touching the stone. Because it is, Zalaria said. The artifact is not merely an object. It is a living part of the world, bound to the energy of creation itself, and it will not give itself freely. We must prove ourselves worthy. That is why we cannot fail. The artifact rested upon a pedestal of black crystal, glowing faintly with its own light. Ethan stepped forward, and Zalaria placed her hand lightly on his arm. Together, she whispered. Ethan nodded. They reached for the artifact at the same time. The moment their fingers touched it, the room shivered and the shadows surrounding them roared. The artifact pulsed with power, and visions flashed before their eyes, visions of their past, present, and potential futures. Ethan saw himself standing alone, failing to protect the people he loved. He saw Zalaria, her crown of light shattered, her world consumed by darkness. And then he saw something else, something that made his heart ache. He saw them together not as master and servant or human and alien, but as equals, standing side by side, facing the darkness, stronger together than apart. Zalaria gasped, her hand tightening on his. Ethan, do you see it? For a moment, Ethan thought they had succeeded, and then a voice echoed through the chamber, deep and cold. You cannot escape destiny, not even together. It means, Zalaria said, her voice firm, that our journey has only just begun. We face this together. Courage alone was not enough. They would need trust, strength, and an unbreakable bond to survive what came next. Together they stepped toward the rift, ready to confront the unknown. The rift before them shimmered with darkness, swirling like a storm captured in stone and shadow. Ethan felt its pull, a cold and ancient force tugging at the core of his being. Zalaria's hand was steady on his, glowing faintly, anchoring him in the midst of chaos. He had faced storms, creatures, and illusions, but this felt different. This was a test of something deeper, not just courage, but heart. "Stay close," Zalaria whispered, her voice like a thread of sunlight through shadow. "This trial will not only test our strength, but the truth we hold within ourselves." He could see reflections of himself, some strong and confident, some small and weak, each moving independently. This is a reflection of our hearts," Zalaria explained, her eyes scanning the shifting horizon. "We must face what we hide, the fears we deny, the desires we cannot speak aloud. Only by acknowledging them can we move forward." He had never thought much of his fears, not truly, but here they were undeniable, manifesting around him like shadows with intent. He stepped forward hesitantly, and one of the reflections of himself turned to face him. Its eyes were hollow, filled with doubt. "You are not enough," the reflection whispered, its voice echoing like wind through empty corridors. "You cannot protect anyone. You will fail." Ethan breathed deeply, realizing that courage was not the absence of fear, but the act of standing against it. Zalaria smiled faintly, but there was no joy in it, only understanding. "Well done," she said softly. "Now you must face what I fear." Suddenly he saw a vision of Zalaria's homeworld, a world of beauty and light, now shattered and burning. He saw her people lost and silent, and her standing alone, clutching what remained of her power, unable to save them. Her crown of light was fractured, her robes tattered, and her face twisted in grief. "I carry this with me," she said, her voice trembling. "This guilt, this sorrow, it is mine to bear, but it can consume me if I allow it. And if it consumes me, I could lose you and perhaps all that remains of your world. I am here, we face it together." "Not if we face it together. We cannot fight it with strength alone. We must face it, accept it, and let it go." Slowly, he reached out with his heart as well as his mind, facing each shadow, acknowledging the grief, the failure, the fear. "I see you," he whispered to each one. "I accept you, but I will not be controlled by you." Zalaria exhaled deeply, and her own shadows shifted, showing moments of her past, the destruction of her world, the mistakes she had made, the lives lost. I do not know if I can forgive myself," she admitted, her voice small. "You can," Ethan said softly. "We can together." Her crown of light shone steadily, no longer fractured. Her robes shimmered without wavering, and when she looked at Ethan, he saw not just an alien queen, but a being capable of trust, courage, and even love. The rift pulsed, sensing their unity. "You are strong together," it whispered, "but do not think this ends here." "It never ends, does it?" he asked quietly. "No," Zalaria said, a faint smile curving her lips. "But that is not weakness, that is life, and we have chosen to face it together." Ethan's legs were weak, his chest tight with exhaustion, but his heart felt stronger than it ever had. Zalaria turned to him, placing her hands on his shoulders. "You have grown," she said, "more than you know, but there is one final choice we must make to claim what we seek. The artifact will only respond if one of us sacrifices a part of ourselves. A memory, a fragment of power, a piece of heart. It is not a loss, but a gift, one that binds us more deeply and strengthens the bond between us. But it must be done willingly." This was a choice that would leave a mark, something irreversible. "Which will it be?" he asked, voice barely above a whisper. Zalaria looked at him, eyes glimmering with light and sadness. "That is for us to decide together." The rift outside the chamber seemed to thrum in anticipation, waiting to see who would step forward and what the bond would demand. Ethan began, heart pounding. He wanted to say yes, to surrender a piece of himself, but he hesitated. He looked at Zalaria, and in her gaze he saw the weight she carried, the centuries of loneliness, the longing for trust and connection. "I will do it," he said finally, voice firm. "Not because I am brave, but because we are stronger together, and because I believe in us." Ethan felt a part of himself lift, replaced by a warmth he had never known. Zalaria felt it too, the bonds strengthening, their fates entwining in a way that could not be broken. For a moment all was still. The rift pulsed quietly, acknowledging their unity. And in that stillness, Ethan understood something profound. Courage, trust, and love were not separate. They were one, and together they could face anything. But even as they breathed in the calm, a whisper echoed through the chamber, soft and terrible. Whatever came next, he knew one thing clearly. They would face it side by side, unbroken, unafraid, and bound not just by fate, but by choice. And as the chamber walls shimmered in the dying light of the artifact, the two of them stood, ready for the final journey that would decide the destiny of both worlds. The chamber trembled one final time, a low hum vibrating through the stone beneath their feet. Ethan and Zalaria stood side by side, hands still clasped over the glowing artifact. The air was thick with energy, the faint glow of the object reflecting in their eyes. Outside, the rift pulsed violently like a wound in the world waiting to expand. "This is it," Zalaria said softly. "The final moment. One of us must give a part of ourselves to bind the bond fully. Only then can the curse be broken, only then can our world be safe." He had faced fear, shadows, and visions of despair, but this was different. This was a choice that would define not just their lives, but the fate of two worlds. His mind raced, and yet in the midst of it all he could feel something steady, Zalaria's hand, warm and alive, grounding him. "Then I will do it," he said at last, voice firm. "Whatever is required, I will give it for you. For us. I choose this." Ethan felt a warmth spreading through him, unlike anything he had known, power and peace, fear and hope, all mingling at once. Zalaria's presence was no longer beside him, but within him as well, their hearts and minds connecting in a way that transcended language, thought, and time. "I can feel you inside me," Ethan whispered, awe in his voice. "It's incredible." The artifact's glow intensified and the shadows recoiled, unable to breach the combined strength of human courage and alien power. Ethan looked at Zalaria, his heart racing. "Are we safe?" "That is the power of choice, trust, and heart." Part of me remained bound to that world. By sharing our essence, I can heal it just as we heal ourselves. But it is fragile and it requires care, just as we must care for each other. That someone like you could feel so human, so real. To live fully, not merely survive. Suddenly, the artifact dimmed, its work complete. Ethan felt a weight lift from his chest, replaced by a quiet strength. Zalaria's hand in his felt warmer than ever, and he knew without a doubt that their connection was permanent. "The curse is broken," Zalaria said softly, almost in awe. "We have done it together." I can't believe it, that we really did it." Ethan felt the cool morning breeze, smelled the scent of earth and leaves, and realized how alive the world was again, both hers and his. "Your world is saved," Ethan said quietly, still taking in the sight of Zalaria's restored land. "And somehow our worlds together feel whole. And it is only the beginning. The darkness will test us again, surely, but together we are prepared." Do you think we'll always be able to face it?" he asked, a touch of uncertainty in his voice. Zalaria smiled, radiant and gentle. "Not always, but we will choose each time. That is the power we now hold, not just fate, but choice, and that choice is stronger than any darkness." Together. As they stepped outside the chamber, the first true rays of sunlight touched their faces. Ethan looked at Zalaria, taller, radiant, and yet gentle. "You've changed everything," he said softly. "And you," Zalaria replied, "have shown me that even across worlds, hearts can meet and trust can endure. That even the darkest curse can be healed with courage and love." Ethan realized something profound. He did not know what challenges awaited, what darkness would rise again, or what sacrifices would come. But he did know one truth, shining brighter than any fear. He would face them, not alone and not as a mere human, but as someone bound to a queen whose heart now beat with his own. Zalaria's voice broke the quiet, soft, and melodic. "Ethan, whatever comes, remember this. We have chosen each other, and no darkness, no trial, no curse can undo that." And though the future would hold challenges, shadows, and the unknown, Ethan and Zalaria stepped forward, side by side, ready to face eternity together. The artifact's glow faded, leaving behind only a faint shimmer in the air, a reminder of what they had shared, what they had chosen, and the bond that would guide them through all that was yet to come. And as they walked toward the horizon, the universe seemed to pause, acknowledging the unity of two hearts, human and alien, mortal and eternal, fear and courage, forever bound in choice, love, and destiny.